relations. In favor, President Yusuf, Vice President Shue, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Cansado, Trinidade, Donahue, Gaya, Sebutinde, Bandari, Robinson, Crawford, Gevorgian, Salam, Iwasawa. Against, Judge Ad hoc Gilani. 5. By 15 votes to 1, finds that the Islamic Republic of Pakistan deprived the Republic of India of the right to communicate with and have access to Mr. Kulbushan Jadhav, to visit him in detention and to arrange for his legal representation, and thereby breached the obligations incumbent upon it under Article 36, paragraph 1A and C of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. In favor, President Yusuf, Vice President Shue, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Cansado, Trinidade, Donahue, Gaya, Sebutinde, Bandari, Robinson, Crawford, Gevorgian, Salam, Iwasawa. Against, Judge Ad hoc Gilani. 6. By 15 votes to 1, finds that the Islamic Republic of Pakistan is under an obligation to inform Mr. Kulbushan Jadhav without further delay of his rights and to provide Indian consular officers access to him in accordance with Article 36 of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. In favor, President Yusuf, Vice President Shue, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Cansado, Trinidade, Donahue, Gaya, Sebutinde, Bandari, Robinson, Crawford, Gevorgian, Salam, Iwasawa. Against, Judge Ad hoc Gilani. 7. By 15 votes to 1, finds that the appropriate reparation in this case consists in the obligation of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan to provide, by means of its own choosing, effective review and reconsideration of the conviction and sentence of Mr. Kulbushan Jadhav, so as to ensure that full weight is given to the effect of the violation of the rights set forth in Article 36 of the Convention, taking account of paragraphs 139, 145, and 146 of this judgment. In favor, President Yusuf, Vice President Shue, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Cansado, Trinidade, Donahue, Gaya, Sebutinde, Bandari, Robinson, Crawford, Gevorgian, Salam, Iwasawa. Against, Judge Ad hoc Gilani. 8. By 15 votes to 1, declares that a continued stay of execution constitutes an indispensable condition for the effective review and reconsideration of the conviction and sentence of Mr. Kulbushan Jadhav. In favor, President Yusuf, Vice President Shue, Judges Tomka, Abraham, Benuna, Cansado, Trinidade, Donahue, Gaya, Sebutinde, Bandari, Robinson, Crawford, Gevorgian, Salam, Iwasawa. Against, Judge Ad hoc Gilani. I shall now call upon the Deputy Registrar to read the operative part of the judgment in French. You have the floor.
Par ces motifs, la Cour, 1. À l'unanimité, dit qu'elle a compétence sur le fondement de l'article 1er du protocole de signature facultative à la Convention de Vienne sur les relations consulaires du 27 avril 1963 concernant le règlement obligatoire des différends pour connaître de la requête déposée par la République de l'Inde le 8 mai 2017. 2. par 15 voix contre 1, rejette les exceptions d'irrecevabilité de la requête de la République de l'Inde soulevée par la République islamique du Pakistan et dit que la requête est recevable. Pour M. Youssouf, président, Mme Choué, vice-présidente, M. Tomka, Abraham Benouna, Cansado Trindade, Mme Donoyou, M. Gaya, Mme Sebutinde, M. Bandari, Robinson, Crawford, Gevorgian, Salam, Iwasawa, juge. Contre, M. Gilani, juge ad hoc. 3.
All right, if you're just tuning in, that verdict at the ICJ, which has been a major victory for India, now being read out in French. Just a short while ago, the president of the ICJ read out the 8 points of the judgment, which essentially say that, well, Pakistan will have to give consular access to India, to Kulbushan Jadhav. This is a 15-1 verdict. It's almost a unanimous verdict there at the ICJ. The execution of Kulbushan Jadhav has also been stayed by the ICJ, and Pakistan clearly has been exposed at the world stage there. Let's take you through the highlights of what the judgment has said. Well, the ICJ found Pakistan in violation of the Vienna Convention. India's request for consular access, as I just said, has been upheld by the court. The court has asked Pakistan to review its judgment, and I'm going to read a certain point from of course, the judgment, and it says, to conclude, the court finds that Pakistan is under the obligation to provide, by means of its own choosing, effective review and reconsideration of the conviction and sentence of Mr. Jadhav, so as to ensure that full weight is given to effect of the violation of the rights set forth in Article 36 of the Vienna Convention. And the verdict was read out, as we just heard, at the public sitting of the United Nations Court in The Hague. And Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and many other leaders across the spectrum have, of course, reacted to that court judgment. A big victory there for India. And joining us is Jas Uppal, human rights lawyer, and also in the studio with us is Ambassador Arun Singh. Let me go across to Jas Uppal first, who's joining us from the UK. Your first thoughts, Jas Uppal, on the court verdict, which is almost unanimous, 15-1, which essentially is saying that there needs to be consular access, there needs to be a review, and the execution of Kulbushan Jadhav has to be stayed for now.
Well, to me, it's not a surprise. It's the right result. They couldn't decide anything short of that. This is what I've been saying from the outset. Consular access is just one aspect of this whole case. He's been denied medical assessment, independent medical assessment, and he's also been denied contact with his family, and even more importantly, access to independent legal advice, including a copy of the case against him, no matter where you are in the world, under...
Right, clearly. So important points there, that no matter where you are in the world, those are rights that you're given no matter what the laws, the domestic laws of the country may be. Arun Singh, Ambassador Arun Singh, your thoughts about the nitty-gritties. I know that many in Pakistan, of course, also tweeting on this, saying that this is not a clear victory for India. The fact is that there's been no annulment of the verdict per se, using the word that the court did not uphold India's contention that only a restitution applicable in the case was annulment of the sentence and release of Jadhav. Having said that, all the other points of the Indian government have been accepted by the court.
I think it is a clear victory for India, because India's purpose was, one, to prevent the execution of Kulbushan Jadhav. Second, to show up that the judicial and legal process that had been carried out in Pakistan, essentially under military court, was not a viable and acceptable process. Third, that Pakistan had violated its international obligations under the Vienna Convention by not giving India consular access. All those points have been upheld. and they have been upheld by huge majority, by a 15-1 vote on most points. And the only dissenting judge has been from Pakistan.
Yes.
And even the vice president of the court, which is she is a Chinese national, has gone on with the majority judgment.
Yes.
So clearly, internationally, what Pakistan has done has been found to be wanting. Now, a point can certainly be made that from India's point of view, the ideal solution would have been to order the release of Kulbushan Jadhav. But as has been pointed out by many experts, under the kind of jurisprudence that prevails at the International Court of Justice, that was not really on the cards.
That is not within their jurisdiction.
It was not realistic to expect that. But India had to make that point.
Yeah.
India couldn't just say that you review under Pakistani courts, because Pakistani courts are not seen as legitimate. Even the civilian courts in Pakistan are seen as stated. And it's not just people in India or elsewhere. Pakistani opposition leaders have been saying that the court decisions in Pakistan are politically influenced. Therefore, India could not very well have argued that you do a review in a Pakistani court. So from India's point of view, of course, the argument had to be that you have to release him, although that was not a realistic...
Just Upal is back with us now, and just now, what happens next in this stage? Of course, can this now be, of course, tried in a civilian court? And we've gone from Pakistan denying that there was any jurisdiction of the ICJ in this matter to saying that this entire case doesn't come under the Vienna Convention, it is under the bilateral agreement between India and Pakistan. To this stage, what can we expect legally to happen now?
With Pakistan, it's no surprise. They will swear black is white and white is black. I don't know which jurisdiction they live on in this planet. It's certainly not with the rest of the world. What the court, ICJ essentially does, we're required to determine the case, an aspect of the case. The rest has to be referred back. It's only natural that it's referred back to the civilian courts. That assumes that the civilian courts are going to follow natural justice and providing with a fair trial. So we need to be careful about that. That's certainly not available to civilians. I doubt if it will be available to him. The fact that there's a focus, there's world attention on them, that may make them review their procedures and be more careful in this case. But I am very convinced, knowing what I know about this case and other cases before it, there are no court files. He wasn't served with court papers about the charges, and there's no supporting evidence. So it'd be interesting what approach they will take in the Pakistani courts. Pakistan cannot just say that they work in isolation. They behave as if they work in isolation. They have to respect the rule of law. Otherwise, they can't function. So it's going to go back to the civilian courts, or the criminal courts. I'm not even sure how they tried him. But they have got it wrong. If you look at the case of Hamid Nihal Ansari, the Indian national from Mumbai, I was actively involved in that case. They court-martialed him, and I don't know why to this day, because he was a civilian. He wasn't an Indian security personnel. So they make up their own laws as they go along, and that can't be done. So the case will have to be pursued vigorously in the courts in Pakistan to ensure that this gentleman gets justice. And he has to have access to his papers. I cannot think how a lawyer is expected to work without the court papers and without access to Mr. Jadhav to find out what his defence is, what he has to say about the proceedings against him.
Right.
And if they were that transparent, they would publish all in their legal, magazines or websites or in their legal...
Justin, let me...
I've yet to see a detailed judgment from them, from the Pakistani courts.
Yeah, so let me then ask you finally, just this consular aspect, consular access that we are likely to get, how soon do you think it can start the process of getting access?
It should be immediate. It should have been asked at the first hearing. I find this extremely frustrating. All these directions that I've been going on about since this case came to light should have happened immediately. There should have been diaries directed right from the outset in Pakistan, or in the first hearing of the ICJ, if not the second one. They're not onerous directions. They're natural rights. They're human rights. It's entitled to all that immediately. It shouldn't be delayed. It should be forthwith. it would have helped if the ICJ had given a timetable as to when this should be taken. But you have to apply for these things. You have to apply for those directions. That it has to be immediate. I cannot see why there's delay.
Jadhav. The court, by a vote of 15-1, has upheld India's claim that Pakistan is in egregious violation of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations 1963 on several counts. We also appreciate the direction by the International Court of Justice that Pakistan should review and reconsider the conviction and sentence given to Sri Jadhav by the Pakistani military court. We note that the court has directed that Pakistan is under an obligation to inform Sri Jadhav without further delay of his rights and to provide Indian consular officers access to him in accordance with the Vienna Convention. We expect Pakistan to implement the directive immediately. This landmark judgment validates India's position on this matter fully. We will continue to work vigorously for Sri Kulbushan Jadhav's early release and return to India. Thank you.
Reaction there coming in from the Indian government. The spokesperson for the Ministry of External Affairs, Ravish Kumar, they're reacting, saying that we are grateful for the ICJ verdict and that we will continue to work for an early release of Kulbushan Jadhav from Pakistan. And in fact, we have other guests joining in at this point also. Tilak Devashar, the former Special Secretary to the Government of India, also joining us at this point. Tilak Devashar, if I can bring you in at this point, your first thoughts on what the ICJ verdict has been. A clear victory for India in many ways, although Pakistan would argue otherwise.
No, it certainly is a major victory for India. There's no denying that. And irrespective of what Pakistan says, the fact of the matter is there are all counts that what India had argued.
Pakistan. The judgment delivered just now by the International Court of Justice in The Hague in favor of India in the case relating to Sri Kulbushan Jadhav. The court, by a vote of 15-1, has upheld India's claim that Pakistan is in egregious violation of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations 1963 on several counts. We also appreciate the direction by the International Court of Justice that Pakistan should review and reconsider the conviction and sentence given to Sri Jadhav by the Pakistani military court. We note that the court has directed that Pakistan is under an obligation to inform Sri Jadhav without further delay of his rights and to provide Indian consular officers access to him in accordance with the Vienna Convention. We expect Pakistan to implement the directive immediately. This landmark judgment validates India's position on this matter fully. We will continue to work vigorously for Sri Kulbushan Jadhav's early release and return to India. Thank you.
All right, I apologize to Tilak Devashar for abruptly breaking into what you were saying. Tilak Devashar, go ahead and complete the point you were making on the ICJ verdict there.
So on every point that India's or the Pakistan wanted, for example, that India's plea was not admissible, the ICJ said it was. India said that Pakistan has violated the Vienna Convention. The court has agreed to that by the overwhelming majority. That he should be provided consular access, and everything flows from that. So I think, Pakistan is now really scratching the bottom of the barrel by saying that the judgment was not annulled. The fact of the matter is that there is a stay continues on the death penalty. Pakistan will have to now review and reconsider, and the case will now probably go to a civilian court where it will be an open trial, in which case Kulbushan Jadhav could well retract from his forced confession that he was forced to give under a military court. So now all these things are something for which Pakistan will have to look at very carefully. And where does Pakistan go from here? That is something that they will have to consider. Now, being Pakistan, and we know what Pakistan has been like, they can always delay giving consular access. There's no time period fixed. It should be immediate, but they can sort of delay it. And what kind of court the case goes to, we've seen recently how the judiciary is manipulated by the Pakistan army. You've gave this recent case of Arshad Malik, the judge. So we have to be on our guard. I think India, especially the MEA, will have to be on its guard and to ensure that the kind of pressure they put on Pakistan during the last 2 years, that kind of pressure continues on Pakistan, so they stay on the straight and narrow, and Kulbushan Jadhav finally gets justice. And one other point, if I may make at this stage, is the critical piece in the whole case is that he was picked up and kidnapped from Iran. Now, there is sufficient material in the Pakistan media which confirms this, that he was kidnapped from Iran. We have to put all this thing together and present it at the opportune moment, because the entire case falls flat that he was not picked up from Balochistan, but he was kidnapped from Iran by the Jaish-e-Adil.
Okay,
and there's enough material evidence of that in the Pakistan open domain.
Yes, Tilak Devasha, we're just going to come back to you, and I just want to highlight some more of those points that you are making there, and that concerns remain about Kulbushan Jadhav's security and life in Pakistan. Obviously, there are areas of worry as well. So let's just recount the areas of victory first. Now, it is certainly a victory for India. India's stand has been fully vindicated by the court. India's right to consular access has been upheld. Pakistan's judicial process has been found inadequate. Pakistan has been asked to carry out effective review of its judgment, and Pakistan has certainly violated Vienna Convention. By implication, the role of the military in the governance and judicial process has also been questioned. His death sentence remains suspended as of now. And lastly, India can again raise the matter with the court, that is the International Court of Justice, if a review by Pakistan is considered not to be effective. But there are certainly issues which are certainly going to worry the Indian government, and effective review of the case has been left to Pakistan to do by means of its own choosing. Those are the key words of the judgment as the court read them out. And Kulbushan Jadhav's release has not been ordered. He remains vulnerable like Sarbjeet, who was killed inside prison. Courts in Pakistan are open to manipulation by the army. Lastly, the court has not asked an assurance from Pakistan that no harm should come in the way of Kulbushan Jadhav. So those are some of the points that Tilak Devasha was also making just a short while ago. And Ambassador Arun Singh, going back to the point of where we go from here, the worries certainly stay. Even if it goes to a civilian court, we know that the courts are compromised in Pakistan. This process can go on for another many years, and as Tilak Devasha was pointing out, that there's no hurry for Pakistan to give consular access despite what the ICJ has said.
Well, ICJ has clearly said that consular access should be given. And if they don't give consular access, then it means that they're not carrying out, one, the decision of the ICJ, and second, an effective review and reconsideration of the decision. Because the entire case has been overturned on the ground that Article 36 of the Vienna Convention and Kulbushan Jadhav's rights flowing from that were not observed. So I think it is vital, and certainly one can't force it on Pakistan in terms of time, but it's an obligation on them. And one of the objectives for India was also to prevent the execution of Kulbushan Jadhav, and that has certainly been achieved. So we have to see, and I think clearly, as many have pointed out, it's a very important victory, but it's a first step, and many more steps will follow, and those have to be closely observed. But I think through its judgment, the International Court has also indicated that whatever Pakistan does now is under international scrutiny. Because it's not just a national decision of Pakistan, but the manner in which the process is done in Pakistan will be subject to international scrutiny. And so I think that's an important message.
Now, Tilak Devasha, going back to the point of where this leaves Imran Khan, now he tried to appropriate all the credit for the raise of Abhinandan. Do you think we can expect a scenario like that? I mean, I'm just throwing things up in the air at the moment, but given how unpredictable this government is in Pakistan, do you think that he may try to leverage this as a point of advantage for him and his government, or there's too much military pressure on him anyway?
You mean whether he will release Kulbushan?
Or at least not be in the way of...
I don't think so. The army, after having...
Go ahead.
I don't think so. I think the army, the army has got a total grip on this. He's in army custody. It was a military court. The death penalty was confirmed by the army chief. There's no way that the army is going to allow Imran Khan to step in at this stage, and without what the ICJ has at least prescribed of a review and a reconsideration, without going through those steps, that they will just hand him over back to India. I'd be very surprised if Pakistan were to go down that route. It won't be Pakistan that they would just, hand him back to us, because he will reveal then so much of wrong that Pakistan has done. His kidnapping from Iran, the torture, the forced conviction, the forced confession that came out, and all those kind of things which they have pinned on him, Abiy will not like that to come out in the open, in the public domain at all. So I don't see that it will in any way, even if he wanted.
If you could be patient, are you settled, please?
Yes.
I will read a brief statement. The delegation was led by the Attorney General of Pakistan, who is standing next to me. As you have seen, the International Court of Justice has not acquitted or released the Indian serving naval officer, Commander Kulbushan Jadhav. Pakistan, as a responsible member of the international community, upheld its commitment from the very beginning of the case by appearing before the Honourable Court for provisional measures hearing despite a very, very short notice. Having heard the judgment, Pakistan will now proceed as per law. It is reiterated that Indian Naval Commander Kulbushan Jadhav entered Pakistan without a visa on authentic Indian passport with a fake alias, Hussain Mubarak Patel. Commander Kulbushan Jadhav is responsible for acts of sabotage, espionage and multiple terrorist incidents in which scores of innocent Pakistani citizens were killed, resulting in umpteen women being widowed and numerous children being orphaned. Commander Kulbushan Jadhav has confessed to all these acts during his trial in a Pakistani court in front of a judicial magistrate. This is a clear case of Indian state terrorism. I thank you all. The Attorney General will just add something. Sir.
Because why is Pakistan not
Let me. Unless you are quiet.
All right, so that, of course, was the Pakistan delegation there speaking just a short while ago, and predictable to script, they said that neither has Kulbushan Jadhav been acquitted or released, that Pakistan is a responsible state actor in the international arena, and that going back to that point of Kulbushan Jadhav making several confessions to the effect that he was a raw agent, he was an Indian spy. Tilak Devashar, we were just speaking about what happens next, and we seem that the rhetoric is still there. They've spoken as per script. They've said that he's not been acquitted, he's not been released, that he has confessed to all his crimes. All those confessions were not part of this proceeding, and the fact is that the ICJ did not allow those confession videos inside the court either. And also the point of the passport was never accepted by the ICJ. All those things have been ignored already by Pakistan.
And also, if you notice, the official spokesman didn't just mention court. It doesn't say military court. So already they're trying to, they realize that the international court has come down heavily on the military court. So he didn't use the word military court. He just said by a court. So, and also the point of the matter, as you very rightly said, the ICJ is not a court of appeal. It did not go into the merits of the case where, where India could have argued or they could have argued that the judgment should be annulled. All it did was that Pakistan was in violation of international covenants. It had violated the Vienna Convention, and for that, everything else flowed from that. And now the case has to go back in an open court where this trial will have to be held on the basis of legal support provided by the government of India to Kulbhushan to argue out the case.
Right.
So, Pakistan, you can make out, is already backtracking.
Right. It's already backtracking. Ambassador Arun saying the interesting thing about that short statement was that they kept referring to Kulbushan Jadhav as Commander Kulbushan Jadhav, who was responsible for scores of deaths in Pakistan and so on and so forth. So clearly, the worries are very, very imminent here, given the fact that they can not uphold what the ICJ has said. They don't need to do any of it, or just do some of it and then forget that they had a responsibility to act.
No, I think this was standard Pakistani position. He just reiterated the standard Pakistani position, and in terms of trying to find straws in the judgment of the ICJ, he just reiterated the point that the ICJ has not ordered the release of Kulbushan Jadhav. But that having been said, I think they now realize that the process that they had carried out so far has been found internationally to be not acceptable, to be flawed, and they have to institute a new process which would be under international scrutiny. So we have to watch that. And so I was not surprised at all by the kind of reaction he gave when he came out, because they are playing to the domestic gallery in Pakistan, trying to show as if they have not lost everything in the ICJ decision, and that they have valid concerns related to the case.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, even though that verdict was 15-1, but as we've been pointing out, there have been many gaps in Pakistan's case right from the beginning. India and Pakistan, of course, submitted a total of 375 pages in written arguments and hundreds of additional pages as annexes, and there were at least 5 days of public hearing, including those of urgent provisional measures as well during the course of those 2 years. Now, first, Pakistan violated the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations and the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in the Jadhav case. Its contention that the ICJ had no jurisdiction in the case was also squashed right at the beginning of the hearing. Instead of being tried in a civilian court, Jadhav was tried in a military court in Pakistan. His conviction in the military court was based on coerced confessions, many of those at that. Pakistan was also in the breach of Article 36(1) of the Vienna Convention, under which it was obliged to inform India without delay about Jadhav's arrest. Now, the Vienna Convention also was breached for failing to inform Jadhav of his rights or allowing him to be represented by a lawyer of his choice. And also the fact that India was not allowed consular access was a breach of the Vienna Convention. Now, Pakistan reiterated that the 2008 bilateral agreement was a key pact in play in the current situation rather than in the Vienna Convention. This is what they had submitted in the ICJ. India asserted that the 2008 agreement between the two countries that laid down the rules for prisoner rights could not supersede the Vienna Convention in this case. India stated that domestic laws cannot be a basis for violation of international obligations, something that the court has reiterated today. Pakistan submitted to the court a heavily edited video of Jadhav's alleged confession of being a spy. This was rejected by the court. The key issue, as per New Delhi, has been that the allegations of espionage were not established in a trial that would meet the standards of minimum due process. India mentioned that the trial of the sole surviving 26/11 terrorist Ajmal Kasab showed the rigorous standards of due process in the Indian legal system. Look at the difference there between how we've treated Ajmal Kasab and, of course, how they're treating Kulbushan Jadhav. Now, India also pointed out that the ICJ, that Pakistan was a member of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which sets out guidelines for the release, retrial and rights of the detainee, as also the scrapping of death penalty in such cases. Pakistan claimed that India was seeking for the ICJ to act as an appellate criminal court. In reply, India pointed out that Pakistan was itself asking the ICJ to be a criminal court by bringing up the issue of Jadhav's passport and his confession. In 2017, Pakistan sought India's assistance for investigation into Kulbushan Jadhav's case. India pointed out that the requests for assistance among states are subject to a bilateral mutual legal assistance treaty. So on all those points, of course, India had a much better argument in the ICJ, backed by facts rather than what Pakistan had to present. Tilak Devashir, now, if you see the court judgment today as well, the points highlighted by India were clearly, had an upper hand when it came to the arguments that we made, which were much more factual in nature than what Pakistan had to present in court.
Oh, absolutely. Actually it is an open and shut case as far as India was concerned. Both India and Pakistan are signatories to the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, which provides consular access for nationals of a third country which are arrested. Pakistan did not give that consular access. So, that's a fact. Pakistan tried to use the argument that consular access is not admissible to alleged spies. I think this is the area where the ICJ has made an important contribution, that it is applicable across the board. And Pakistan's argument that it is not applicable to alleged spies was totally thrown out of the window. So I think it's a very important point that was made in the ICJ. And things like that, all across, as you yourself said, where Pakistan was totally on the back foot and the Indian legal case was so strong whether it was a question of due process, of not providing him a lawyer of his choosing for a proper defense in a criminal case, whether it was the admissibility of India's plea, whether it was whether the ICJ had jurisdiction itself, and the military court. So on all these issues, India's had a watertight case, and Pakistan's entire case was based on that the Vienna Convention is not applicable as far as alleged spies are concerned. In some places, they even raised the issue whether he was an Indian national, and which is the most surprising argument of all that was made.
Yeah.
So, Pakistan had a very, very weak legal case, and which is obvious in the judgment.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, as we are pointing out, there are reactions coming in from the Indian side, and the Indian Prime Minister himself, Narendra Modi, has reacted to the Jadhav verdict. He has said, and I quote, "We welcome today's verdict in the ICJ. The truth and justice have prevailed. Congratulations to the ICJ for a verdict based on extensive study of facts. I'm sure Kulbushan Jadhav will get justice. Our government will always work for the safety and welfare of every individual." That, of course, is the Indian Prime Minister there reacting to the Kulbushan Jadhav verdict that has just been announced by the ICJ. Also joining us at this point is Jamil Ahmed Khan from Pakistan, former diplomat. Jamil Ahmed Khan, now we've been discussing what the ICJ has said bit by bit. It's been almost a unanimous verdict there. There are many expectations now from Pakistan to hold out to what the ICJ has said. What can we expect? Will we get consular access, and will there be a retrial as the ICJ has said?
Yeah, well, in fact, we have to really look at it from two different angles. Number one, that it's true that ICJ has given its judgment, and consular access point has been well taken. And Pakistan being the signatory of United Nations Charter, and we rectified it in the very early stages, like India. So therefore, we are obliged to follow and to implement that, because that is an obligatory thing under Article 94 of the ICJ statute. So definitely Pakistan would do it, and Pakistan has always respected the rule of law, and they would follow this. Also, the order, as the question of its revision, retrial, you would probably bear me out that according to the United Nations Charter, it's the sovereignty of the country and the system within that country, if it is not in conflict with the human rights. And since ICJ has not raised any question on the mechanism and the system under which Pakistan, under the Army Act 59, the conviction was granted to or awarded to Commander Kulbushan Jadhav. So that question, as far as I monitored a while ago, has not been really separately highlighted or thrashed out, or any judgment given on that. So therefore, Pakistan is very open, and the appeal lies, the revision lies with the High Court, and the appeal lies with the Supreme Court of Pakistan, which is an open court where Commander Kulbushan Jadhav can hire any defense counsel and plead his case. So that was in any case given and embedded within the mechanism of the judicial.
That's an important point you're making there, Jamil Ahmed Khan. The fact is that it is left, you say that the ICJ has left it to Pakistan's discretion of where this trial will take place. You're also, in a sense, pointing out that it can very well still continue in the military courts. But the court has clearly said today that due process was not followed. In many of its detailed judgments, it states that the execution has to be stayed, but if it goes back to the military court, how does India, how does it sort of monitor the case? Because your military courts function very differently from civilian courts.
Well, 2 points here. Number one, that the ICJ has revolved around its decision and its discussion and its narration of the decision in the open court, and they have very clearly described Article 36 of Vienna Convention, Article 36 1A, Article 36 1B, and Article 36 1C. And according to that, yes, Pakistan respects all international laws and the decision of the ICJ. So therefore, yes, that point was granted, and that's the counter
No,
act.
I'm asking you, will this still be in the military courts according to your assessment that there is... Yes.
That is, Pakistan, like any other member of the United States, is a sovereign country. It's up to Pakistan now to go for revision of it within the military court or outside. So that is within the judicial system of Pakistan. At this point in time, my assessment is that his revision would also take place in the military court. And it's not a new thing. There has been such mechanism under such circumstances. Yeah, earlier also.
Okay, I get your point. Stay with us, Jamil Ahmed. Ambassador Arun Singh, you were making exactly this point before we hit the show, that this could very well be tried in the military court again, given the fact that they are going to be fixated on the one point that the ICJ has made, that is by means of its own choosing effective review and reconsideration of the conviction. So
but I don't think it can be done in a military court. So there I would slightly disagree from the earlier comment, because the manner in which the court verdict has been given, it has clearly found that the process so far has been flawed. Second, it has called for an effective review and reconsideration, not just a review and reconsideration, and added a clause that, if required, through bringing new legislation. And therefore, there is a clear signal there that a military court process, which by its nature tends to be opaque, not transparent, is not something that can be seen to be an effective review and reconsideration. And anything that comes out of a military court based on this court's decision can be challenged, that an effective review and reconsideration has not been carried out as mandated by the court. So if Pakistan wants to find a way forward from this, clearly in terms of the court decision, they have to work out their own national process and mechanism for doing this, but it can't be a military court process.
Tilak Devashar, do you agree with what our guest from Pakistan is saying, Jamil Ahmed Khan, the former diplomat, that this can very well be in the military courts? And I just want to go back to this case, that's been going on for the last 3 years. We had our expectations high when Pakistan allowed the wife and mother of Kulbushan Jadhav to visit him. We know what happened off that. JP Singh, our Deputy High Commissioner there, was not allowed access to Kulbushan Jadhav, even outside of it. And there's been much back and forth since then. So Tilak Devashar, what do you think happens here now, given the fact that the Pakistan side is already hinting that this could very well still be in the military courts?
I don't see how it can, and I agree with Ambassador Arun Singh. You see, the military court's decision, the death penalty awarded to him, was based on a forced confession, no legal assistance provided to Kulbushan Jadhav. Now, both these things have been clearly said, that, the ICJ has objected to both, even though due process was not followed. Now, when he is gets consular access, gets a lawyer of his choosing, I don't see how the military court system can function again.
Right, absolutely. And in fact, all through the case, Ambassador Arun Singh, there have been so many points that have been highlighted by the ICJ, given the fact that it said, yes, we have jurisdiction in this case. Yes, this is a case under the Vienna Convention. Yes, Pakistan is, cannot play the videos on, at a platform like this. But going back to the fact that around 25 times consular access was denied in the past to India. India would have never gone to the ICJ had this process been bilateral, as Pakistan said it should have been. The fact that we went to an international court was because none of our requests were going through to the Pakistani side.
India had to go to the ICJ because Pakistan was not providing consular access, and therefore there was a clear sense that due process was not happening, and that Pakistan was violating its obligation under international law, obligations that it had undertaken. And therefore, clearly at that time itself, there must have been some dilemma in India whether or not to go to the international process, because very often our stand has been that we should try and resolve issues with Pakistan bilaterally. But clearly Pakistan here had stalled the bilateral process, was violating the obligations it had undertaken. And so judgment was made to take recourse to the international process. And And the manner in which the judgment has come has clearly vindicated India's stand. Because if you go through the judgment, you can see that on every point made by India and Pakistan, the decision is in India's favor, except on one, where India asked for his release. And there the court said that that is not an issue where it can take a position, and didn't give a clear verdict on that. But on all the other issues, it has ruled in favor of India. And many jurists and lawyers have pointed out that in terms of jurisprudence at the International Court, normally it would not take a position on that issue. So that could be expected realistically. But of course, India had to make that argument.
Yeah. Jamil Ahmed Khan, you know, there have been many arguments made from the Pakistani side that this was a bilateral issue, but why wasn't this then resolved on the bilateral level? There were so many requests for consular access. We have, under the 2008 agreement, some sort of rules for prisoners, you know, guidelines for them for prisoner swap and what sort of rights they have. India would have not gone to the ICJ had it not been for the simple fact that Pakistan was not willing to listen on this fact. And I just think that today's statement by the Pakistan side in Hague has also been quite worrisome, where your team has said that you know that we had confessions from Kulbushan Jadhav. They brought back the point of passport. These are things now in the past. The fact is that we've gone through all of this in the last 3 years. What next is the question.
So the next question is, of course, India and Pakistan should resolve it bilaterally, but I'm glad that you mentioned about 2008 agreement. And agreement, as you all know, as we all know, that agreement has the strength of the Charter of United Nations, and even the ICJ has provisions to vouch for the agreements between various countries and between bilateral agreements also. So this agreement, if I don't miss out anything in it, then perhaps there was one separate clause that in case of security issues, the decision would be made on case-to-case basis. And it is where perhaps the Pakistani government was not in a position to accord the access to start with. And then later on, of course, it's a decision of the court now, the international ICJ, and that point has been resolved. The fact of the matter is now that the two countries are to resolve things bilaterally, and this is what your Simla Accord also says, then they have to really sit together and even resolve everything which is disputed or which is under dispute, including Kashmir. So unless that is done, I think we'll keep rattling these points at various forums. So far as the technical aspects of the ICJ decision is concerned, we definitely we are satisfied, and we are obliged under Article 94 to implement all the decisions made by the International Court of Justice, ICJ. So that we are doing it. But the things go beyond that. The Article 1 and Article 2 of the United Nations Charter, they are very clear that if anywhere where the world feels, the United Nations feels that there is a danger to the regional and the international peace, then in that case they have to intervene. And Pakistan and India, they are the force to reckon with, and therefore they have to really resolve it till the time. Otherwise, the world would definitely jump into it and would, under these clauses of the United Nations Charter, would like us to resolve our disputes. And I think there is nothing impossible. We had started doing the confidence building measure, and we should again resume that, because these things would go on for indefinite period. I don't want to go into the details.
Okay. I understand. You're saying that the relationship between India and Pakistan, of course, is cyclical in many ways. We are having the Kartarpur discussion as well at this point. The Pakistani airspace has been opened up. But Ambassador Arun Singh, how much of this has to do with sort of, you know, the FATF happening, that Imran Khan is visiting America on the 22nd of this month, that in all of this there is a cycle, and in between those cycles some decisions emerge?
So there's certainly a cycle, and at the moment, clearly there's a lot of focus in Pakistan on Imran Khan's visit to the United States next week. According to reports, he would be meeting the US President on 22nd of July. So clearly at this stage, they want to signal that they are a reasonable country and under pressure from that, and also the pressure from FATF. They have taken some action against Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed, but in the past also they've taken action and then walked back from those actions. So we have to watch. We have to watch how this process evolves. But also Pakistan, the economy is undergoing tremendous difficulties at the moment. And they have needed loans from the IMF. They have taken money from Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar and others. So they have to work out from themselves as to what kind of a country they want to be, what kind of signal they want to give internationally, what kind of a signal they want to give to India. And of late, they have been trying to signal that they want to have a more cooperative relationship, although they have not really taken action on the subject of terrorism. But on the Kartarpur corridor issue, there seems to have been some progress. They have now opened up the airspace. So if Pakistan wants to signal that, then they have to treat Kulbushan Jadhav in a certain manner, following from
and
this.
And that would be not use Kulbushan Jadhav as collateral for other arguments and other decisions to be pushed. Ambassador Arun Singh, Tilak Devashar and Jamil Ahmed Khan, thanks very much indeed for joining us this evening and sharing your thoughts on this very important verdict in the ICJ Kulbushan Jadhav. Let's hope. Well, I believe Tilak Devashar has a point. Last point, sir, before we break it here. Go ahead.
Yeah, you know, the point that was made by the Pakistani guest about the bilateral treaty, you know, the Vienna Convention on Treaties is very clear that bilateral treaties can supplement an international covenant. It cannot detract from it. So you cannot use the bilateral treaty of 2008 talking about national security and not allowing consular access, because the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations very clearly provides for consular access. So I don't think so it is really right on the part of the Pakistani guest to say that as per the bilateral agreement, we can decide on merits about consular access.
Absolutely. I think that point was also made in court. Tilak Devashar, Ambassador Singh and our guests from Pakistan, Jamil Ahmed, thanks very much indeed for joining us and sharing your thoughts this evening. Well, as we've been pointing out, this is a discussion that will continue. Hopefully there will be some resolution now of this matter, and it's not a long haul for Kulbushan Jadhav. It's already been so many years. But the International Court of Justice has, of course, given India's case for Kulbushan Jadhav a huge thumbs up. And that 15-1 verdict overwhelmingly is in favor of India, first and foremost, and it has, of course, delegitimized the farcical military court trial in Pakistan that gave Jadhav a death sentence. The ICJ has effectively stopped Jadhav's execution, so India has the upper hand there, and it can put an end to the threat to Jadhav's life. Secondly, India has been vindicated in its legal approach to the case. India made the Vienna Convention the foundation of its argument, and the World Court has upheld India's stand on that very point and said that Pakistan's stand is in violation of the Vienna Convention of 1963 in 2017. When India moved the International Court of Justice, it clearly stated that in many instances Pakistan had violated the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. And yet again, in the arrest, detention and trial of Kulbushan Jadhav, according to Article 30 of the Vienna Convention, it was mandatory for Pakistan to inform the Indian consular officers about Jadhav's arrest without delay. But the Pakistani authorities failed to do so and informed the Indian High Commissioner about his arrest only 3 weeks later. Pakistan also did not inform Jadhav about his right to consular access mandated under Article 30 of the Vienna Convention. India was denied consular access to Jadhav 16 times since his arrest. Pakistan's military court verdict was based on Jadhav's confession taken under custody without proper legal representation. This was a clear violation yet again of the Vienna Convention and international laws, including to the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights as well. So India can now demand consular access to Kulbushan Jadhav. However, the International Covenant of Civil Political Rights clearly also states that the use of military courts for the trial of civilians is in violation of due process and standards. And that means that the Indian government can be directly in touch with him face to face, and that is crucial to ensure his release and return from Pakistan to India. Well, on that note, we're taking a break, but our continued coverage on the ICJ verdict on Kulbushan Jadhav continues after this short break. Stay with us.